Welcome to our LB's The Lover of Books Author Chat. If this is your first time here live or watching the recording, I'm so glad you found us. I've had the honor to interview over 90 debut to best-selling authors, and readers like you have helped my YouTube channel grow. That's LB The Lover of Books, and it's now over 33,000 hours watched. So thank you
Wow.
so much, yes, for joining, and I appreciate you taking the time to like, to comment, and especially to subscribe. So if you haven't already, click subscribe. We're here today, though, to talk to one of my favorite authors. Sally Hepworth is a New York Times bestselling author of 10 novels, most recently Mad Mabel, that we're here to talk about today. Her novels have been called darkly charming and praised by authors like Emily Giffin and Leon Moriarty as totally absorbing and fiction at its finest. She has novels that have sold millions of copies worldwide and have been translated into over, this is amazing, 30 languages. As you know, she lives in Melbourne, Australia with her family, but tonight she is giving us an hour of her time to discuss Mad Mabel. Thank you so much, Sally, for joining us.
Thank you. I've been so excited about this because I've talked a lot about the inspiration and things, but I haven't really got to get into the nitty-gritty and the spoilers for people who've read it. So this is going to be fun.
It is excitingly fun. I will start though. I know that the inspiration is so essential to this book, and I know you may have
Oh,
heard
yeah.
it if you were a Sally fan like me. I've heard it in person, I've heard it on interviews, and I want to hear it one more time. So, can you talk a little bit about
Yes,
it? Because I love this story.
of course. Yes, and I'm happy to talk about anything you guys want to talk about. So, this inspo came to me, what I like to say, via or from the gods, but via a little old lady. So I was promoting my previous book, Darling Girls, around Australia, and I went to do a literary luncheon in Sydney. And at that luncheon, it was a really fun, it was a murder themed luncheon. And so I really got to have fun talking about all the different ways we can murder people and who I wanted to murder, which was mostly my ex-husband at that point because I was going through a divorce. And everyone was having a good time and laughing. And so afterwards, when I was signing books, I noticed at the back of the line was an elderly lady who turned out to be in her 90s. And I noticed her and I said, let's bring her to the front. I don't think anyone will mind if she comes up to the front. And she said, no, no, I want to wait until the end. And I said, okay. And so finally, we got to the last one, and she came up and she pulled up a chair and she said to me, I have decided to murder my next door neighbor. And I said, okay, fantastic. How are you going to do it? Because I liked specifics because I'm a crime novelist and I thought I'm going to get some good material here. And she said, well, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I know that I'm going to get away with it. And I said, how do you know that? And she said, because there are two groups of people who are never suspected of murder. And those groups are old ladies and little girls. And you guys obviously have read the book now, and you know that is the opening line of the book. And the fun little follow up to that story, which I'm not sure if you've heard or not, LB, is that I actually went back this year to that literary lunch to talk about Mad Mabel. And I was obviously telling that story everywhere I went. And right before I went on stage, I remembered that it was at that particular luncheon. And so I found the organizer and I said, do you know if Rosalie, which was the lady's name, do you know if she's here? Because suddenly I thought, shit, if she has murdered her next door neighbor, I don't want to give her away. Like what if she's actually got away with it? She's done a great job. Like obviously he would have deserved it. And I don't want her hauled off to jail in her 90s. And the funnest bit about that was that everyone, there was the organizer, and she had three little helpers, all women. The only thing anyone cared about was making sure that Rosalie was, out of trouble. So everyone then, we're checking the list for names, making sure she wasn't, or, we're working out if she was there or not. And it turned out that this particular Rosalie had passed away. So she wasn't there. Her secret was safe. We will never know if she murdered her neighbor or not, but at least she will be taking that to the grave. And what I loved was the sisterhood of women all just trying to protect her. So rest in peace, Rosalie, and thank you for the inspiration for Mabel.
Yes, I love that. First of all, she was willing to stand and wait until the very end. And then when she
Yep.
pulled up a chair, it wasn't really to rest. It was because
Oh
this
no.
was a very serious conversation.
Yeah, she thought, I know this woman is going to help me get this job done. And I don't think I really was all that helpful. I was more just interested in what kind of inspo she could give me. And as it turned out, quite a lot.
Oh my
So
God. And I love a good first line, like the beginning of Ellen Foster. Like this is just such a great line. And I think I'm going to remember it. I've already quoted it to like several people who are like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, you need to read this book. Um,
what is it?
no, oh, Ellen Foster. It's hold on. Don't ask me that. We just
Oh
talked about
no. I'm
perimenopause. I
going to
have it
look
on
it
my
up
shelf though. I'll
afterwards.
get it. Okay.
Okay.
Somebody can look it up and put it in the chat
I'm going
box.
to look it up after.
Um,
Yeah.
but my brain is on Mad Mabel. So I want to know
Okay.
how Mad Mabel made it into your brain because she is such a well thought out, deep character that we all learn about, as we go through the novel. But when did you know like, oh, Mad Mabel, this is where I'm going.
Oh, I'm always really bad at the how. To me, and it's not this way with every book, but to me, there wasn't a period of getting to know her. She just existed. And she just came with all of her, she sort of popped up like a real 3D person for me as soon as I started writing. She had such a strong voice and she was talking. I think part of that is having the first person narrator. It really
Mhm.
helped. What I didn't know about her was why, and the whole book was a bit of an exploration of why is she. I knew that she had murdered someone, or that was what the position I was going to start with because that's what came to me with Rosalie, and it was going to be about this little old women and little girls. And so my question was, is it an old woman murderer and a little girl murderer? Is it an old woman murderer who murdered as a little girl? How is that all going to come together? And one thing I knew was that Rosalie was absolutely right that old women and little girls do very rarely murder. Old women are very unlikely to murder. There's a much higher percentage of women who will murder as an associate to a man. Elderly women who murder on their own is very, very rare. But the rarest is young girls. And so I looked up a few cases of it, and what I found was, and this is what I believe anyway, children don't murder unless, or children don't cause harm unless harm has been caused to them. And it can look in lots of different ways. And it is, there's often a mental health element to it. But I knew when I started writing Mabel as an old woman that some harm had come to her as a child because it just wouldn't be realistic for a child to cause this kind of harm without that being the case. So then I went back into her backstory and I did write the book, you know, um, what's the word? I'm losing my words too.
Linearly?
Sync. Yes, I
Linearly?
wrote it in order. So I was finding out at the same time and I did move some things around later, but I wanted to know what has made her this way, what's made her so guarded, what's made her keep everyone at arm's length. And I didn't feel like she was a closed person. I thought she was a vulnerable, warm person, but she had just been terribly hurt. So that was where I kind of really got those layers to her, was as I wrote. But I didn't have any period before starting where I thought, who is she? For me, that comes out through my fingers on the keyboard. Every time I hear her voice, see how she interacts, I get to know her a bit better. And that, particularly seeing her talking to Persephone, that came out very quickly who she was.
Well, I think the way you approached Mabel is how Mabel approached Daphne. She knew
Yeah,
every idiosyncrasy of Daphne or Daisy, but it's almost like she was just there. Like Mabel was to you, kind of your invisible friend in a lot of ways. When you
yeah.
said you wrote it in order, so you started basically at her birth telling the story that way, and then you went into the Persephone and the Libby and all those later, or
No, I wrote it as so I started with old Mabel, and then I wrote to those points, and then I went at the same order pretty much that I wrote the book. So
okay.
I met her at the same time as a child as you guys did. And then there was a few little afterwards I did move things a little bit as I sort of got to know the whole book, but generally speaking, I wrote the whole book in the same order that you guys got it. I didn't write one story and then another story, because I am very cognizant about pacing and reveals as a writer. And so I get a sense of when it's time to go back and give some backstory as I write. If that feels like the right time for me, then that's when I go there. So yeah, I kept peeling back more layers of her as I wrote. And I had a little sense of what I thought was going to happen in the end, but it changed a little bit. Um, and I
Can
also
you talk
didn't
about
know
that?
because,
Can you talk a little bit
yeah,
about the change?
well, so I probably didn't know for sure that Daphne was imaginary until I got about a third of the way in. And then I thought, yes, because the thing about a twist, not telling you guys anything you don't know, but something I'm really cognizant of when I write a twist is that I don't just want it to be a gimmick that is, a gasp moment. It has to also be resonant to the story. And by about a third of the way in, I thought, yeah, I can see that she would create this. The whole book is about friendship. I'd already written the line about about platonic female friendship and how it was a love story. And I thought the irony of this story being about a girl who doesn't have a friend, I thought actually added another layer to the book. So I thought yes, but I also wanted to make sure that I could pull it off. So quite often I'll have an idea for something that I think is going to work, but then when I get there, that doesn't work, or I have a better idea, or I pull that because it's too much. So I about a third of the way in, I thought Daphne was imaginary. Before that, I was playing with the idea that was she murdered? Did she murder? A lot of the things that people have since said to me, oh, I thought this, I thought that. And I thought, oh, so did I for a little while.
Well,
um,
it's nice. You kind of have the same experience, or we have the same experience that you did. And at time, it's like, okay, well, is the murder because she's being blamed for her 1-year-old sister's murder, and then like there's all these like hold your breath moments along the way, which I found just so thrilling, but also so sad for Mabel because this is her life.
yeah.
How do you handle those ups and downs in a book like this? Because I feel like this is a little bit of a different type of book for you. And I love the direction that it headed. Can you talk a little bit about that and how was it a natural shift? Was it something you were wanting to try new?
I don't, it's funny because almost every time I write a book, someone will say, oh, this has been a bit of a departure for you. And I always think, has it? I don't know. Like, I only because I don't really plan anything. Don't tell my publisher. I just follow the story and the story takes me. So no, it wasn't anything intentional that I thought, oh, I know I'm gonna I'm gonna do something different here. It wasn't that. But I can see how it feels different. I think the main difference from my previous books is that it's only one narrator. It's young Mabel and old Mabel, but it's all Mabel. And I've never done that before with a book. I've always had at least two or three or four narrators. So that was something new. How do I marry the light and the shade? This is something that's really important to me because this book, as I said, it had to go to some dark places. It just didn't feel right to me that we would have someone who'd murdered as a child without going into the very serious why. You kind of make a commitment to the reader. I think I am going to go there um, and I'm going to show you why this happens, but I'm not going to make it relentlessly bleak, which is why the characters of Cess and Ness were very important. I before writing this book, I wrote a book called Darling Girls. It was the previous book, which was about three girls in foster care. And one of the things that came through to me really strongly while writing that book was the importance when children go through difficult things and end up in foster care, for example, the importance of having one person in their life who is there for them, who believes in them, who they hear saying nice things about them. And it might be a grandparent, it might be a foster parent. In this case, it was Cess and Ness. I really came to understand through that book the transformative effect of that person or people. And so I knew that Mabel, young Mabel, was going to have that through them. So they were important. The other thing that can be sometimes tricky, but I always do it, is black humor. Um, and and again, it's never my intention to be insensitive to things because there's some serious topics that we raise here. But I was raised on a steady diet of black humor, laughing at ourselves. My parents both had very difficult childhoods. Just by chance, they both lost their parents when they were young. And they both have got this amazing attitude of just, we look forward, we're grateful for what we have, and we laugh. And as a family, we laugh at so many things and we laugh at our own misfortune. And I've really, as an adult, realized what a transformative um, skill it is to be able to laugh, and the release you get from laughing when things are really bad. Like I'm going to look like a psycho, but some of my favorite moments and laughs have been at funerals, like when someone farts or something and you're like, oh, and everyone just wants the release, to not the release, well,
Not the
maybe the
release.
release, but also everyone, it's so dark and people just want, that laughter. um I've got many, many stories like that, and I think that's what I'm kind of trying to put into this book for the characters, but also for the readers, because dark and light do coexist in life. Terrible things happen alongside beautiful things and funny things, and that is the way life works. And so that's my little piece of me, I guess, that comes out in the book. And I hope it doesn't come across as insensitive, because that's not how I mean it to be.
Not at all. I feel like it is a pendulum constantly, right, in life. And so, we never spend time too much time at the two highs or two lows kind of thing. And you do it beautifully. I think also your humor comes through amazing through Mabel. Her outlook. I love that it is first person because we get to hear her thoughts. And to me, that tells me more about her and her growth along this short period of time when she's older. Um,
Yeah.
her emotional growth, all the things, right? How fun was it to deliver those lines? Because to me, I was just
Oh.
like, ah, this is the best.
Oh my God, it was so, so fun. And I'm so glad that people loved her, because there is that piece of me, both as an Australian as well. I've got a big American audience. I always wonder, oh, I hope that what I'm saying here, or this word, or whatnot, translates. And sometimes it doesn't exactly translate, but everyone gets it, like I don't, well, you guys tell me, but I do feel like people do understand the humor and things. But my biggest fear was that people wouldn't understand Mabel and wouldn't love her, because I was so in love with her by the end of the book. But the truth is that, I think on page 3, she tells, a 7-year-old girl to fuck off. So, she's not particularly lovable all the time. But oh, people are writing nice things. I
I
loved
know.
Mabel with my whole heart.
Yes. Oh,
Um,
well, I do have questions though, because you talk about how, it's different language or terms sometimes in America, but you also mentioned that you have translators. Are there American translators? Like, is it
no,
exactly the same, or you're like, no, they can read up the Australian version, they've got this.
They only translate, so they change the to American spelling for the US. So they we have lots more U's in color and things like that, and
Okay.
you guys don't have those. But no, it is a direct translation. Um, so there's no Americanization, so that we're cool with that. Um, and yeah, but I think you guys get it, right? Like I
Yeah.
remember that
Oh, yeah.
being
I assumed, yeah, to me, there wasn't anything that tripped me up at all. Um, but I also want to know because we talked about you writing through Mabel's eyes, but there's almost 8 decades between your two main characters. I mean, although we don't get Persephone's head, we get a
yeah.
lot of Persephone and her voice. So how was that to be able to jump from one extreme to the other in a lot of ways?
It was so fun. I really had fun with these two characters. My daughter, people say, where did you get the inspiration to have a 7-year-old, girl Persephone? And I lived with a 7-year-old girl called Clementine while I wrote this book, and she is my daughter, and she's also a real piece of work. So that voice came to me very naturally, and I knew that when we were talking, I knew that if I was going to have this old character that had been through this stuff, that she was going to have to, peel back the layers through the course of this book. And so the question is how? How do you cause someone to do that? And I mean, a 7-year-old girl is the person for the job if you want to get into the hardest of hearts. We see it all the time, and I am mad for that intergenerational relationship between young and old. We're seeing it a lot more now. There are TV shows out there about kindergartens getting together with nursing homes. And in fact, my niece's kinder goes to a nursing home, and both groups of them absolutely love it. My little daughter Clementine was very close to my great auntie Gwen, and we used to visit her at the nursing home. And I remember just watching the way that everyone in the nursing home lit up when she was there. Now, the fun of Mabel and Persephone is that Mabel does not light up when she is there. She doesn't like it. She keeps saying, "No, I don't want to be your friend. Go away." But yet she sort of worms her way
Yeah.
into her heart. And
Persistent Persephone is gonna is gonna do it, like without a doubt. And it
she
really changes
is,
her outlook on life, I think, in a lot of ways too. And it was so interesting that she never even realized that she had friends. Because I guess
yeah,
she'd been lonely for so long that it took Libby saying, or maybe it was Adit saying, "You do have friends. Like, don't you like look around?" To
yeah,
me, that was sort of an eye opener as a reader because I we could all see it, right?
yeah.
But for her, it
Yeah,
was
she was. Yeah, I mean, but it was also about how she tuned into them. I mean, there was always Peter there helping take out her bins, and even the war that she had with her neighbor Ishan before he died. All of these things, she may not have thought of them as friendships, but they're these connections with society. But it really wasn't until Persephone kind of came over and wouldn't let her walk away, and then a demon Libby came into her house, and they were so enamored with her, and she is so charming even in her grumpy kind of way, that it does sort of take you opening the door a crack for um people to be able to come in. And I think Persephone was the one that just, and in fact Adim as well, just jammed his foot, actually in the crack to get her to come in, or to allow them into the house. And that's what was happening for Mabel in the older version of the book, or in the present story.
I will say that the audience is definitely loving the dark humor, and someone said the correlation. But have you seen Still Magnolias, the movie?
Yes,
And that
love it.
take a whack out of Weezer. You know what I mean? Like it's just that moment where
Yes,
you need that release. And I think we need more of that. Like I keep please keep doing it because it
God,
does
I
it
love that
it
scene.
allows
Take
us
a
to
look.
go to those dark places so that we can
Yes,
explore. There was a lot of discussion in here too about when they realized that Daphne was imaginary. Can you talk
yeah.
about when you wanted that when did you think the reader would get it, or when did you want the reader to understand that?
Yeah, I'm just reading. Someone said there was one expression that didn't translate, something like line in. I didn't get it, or line on. Hmm.
I don't
I don't
know. I'll
know
have to look
what that
that one up.
was. Yeah, we'll have to, yeah. Okay, sorry, I got distracted because I was getting ready to correct it. So, sorry. So the question was about when people realized that
Daphne.
Daphne was imaginary. Look, I knew that some people would guess that and some people wouldn't. It was less important to me that it be the twist that no one saw coming. You know what I mean? Like in some cases there are twists that I really hope will not be picked. That one I thought people will realize at some point or they won't. That's fine. The importance of that quote, oh sorry, that twist for me was as whenever people do realize, I want them to feel that thud of, oh my God, she is imaginary. And the reason she's imaginary is because she needed to create a friend. Like that's it was less about the twist and more about the go, this is how desperate she was for a friend. Um, so Plum was back. Yeah.
There
Um,
is kind of a parallel with Anne of Green Gables with that too, with
yeah.
Katie in the window. Um, is I'm assuming that's a favorite book of yours growing up to put that in this novel.
It sure is, and also Ness giving it to her as the librarian was exactly how I came across that book, and it was given to me by a librarian, and I just read it and read it and read it, and absolutely adored it. And it's funny because I put that book in because it was my experience early on before I even knew what was going to happen with Daphne, and so. I think Stephen King in his book On Writing says that he calls them the boys in the basement, which is when sometimes subconsciously we lay the groundwork for something to come, even though as writers we don't know what that thing is. I call them the women in the kitchen, instead of the boys because they're working harder. Let's face it, the boys in the basement are just like playing video games or whatever. But I had put that in, and then when I decided to for her to be imaginary, it all just went, oh, it's there from the book, and obviously this was meant to be. So
And I think you're
yeah,
right. You don't have to, it doesn't matter if you've got it. It wasn't one of those things like, oh, I should have gotten it, or oh, I wish I wouldn't have known, or I wouldn't have, realized. To me, it was so emotionally impactful, no matter
yeah.
where you got it. So I think you were right on the money for that.
But the
So
twist that no one seemed to see coming, at least that they've said to me, was Peter being Mabel's son, and I was glad about that because I knew that very early on, and it obviously I could see it because I knew from the start, and I was sort of glad that that twist,
held.
went alongside and almost was the bigger kind of one that people,
Well,
yeah,
Dana,
people are saying they didn't
she
see it coming.
she commented, Dana said, I'm an adoptive mom and loved the story of Peter. I think that is
Oh,
a special moment for all our adoptive parents and adopted kids out there, to be seen and to have such a lovely ending, of connection for them. What was your goal in towards the end, right? When you knew Peter was going to already have known for her. What did you want to have happen there?
I guess I don't know that I thought I wanted anything particular to happen. I just knew that it exposed another layer of Mabel by the fact that yes, she'd had this baby. Yes, she had given the baby up for adoption to Ness, who she loved and trusted more than anything else, and that it shows that by watching over him her whole life,
Mhm.
how much she did actually care and love, and how much potential she had for love inside her. She was just so much more um, soft than I think even she realized. And for
Or
him, I
wanted to
think,
realize, really. I mean, she really didn't
yes,
want to admit that about herself.
no, because she doesn't want to, that she just needed to show toughness, a tough exterior to the world. But I think that him not acknowledging that as well was his understanding of what she was like and what her comfort level was, and the fact that he loved her too. I think that was sort of a gentle little story that I didn't want to overwrite either, because the story was about Mabel. It was about Mabel's life, and it was about friendship, and that piece of it was a piece of her story that just sort of anchored that, rather than being the the central story.
Well, Bonnie did ask, and I think you've answered it in part, but she said, why was her relationship with Peter not open, as both seem to know who the other is? And then they seem to have had a relationship once she was out of jail and with Ness in the library and all that. So is that because you wanted to keep it more Mabel focused in a way?
I'm just laughing because I just read someone said, I actually thought that Peter was imaginary too. Potentially. I'm like, oh, let's make everyone imaginary. No, I didn't think of that, but that's a good idea. Look, my feeling on their relationship was that I had to keep it partly yes, partly it's that there's so many little relationships that you could make more of. At the end of a book, you always think, oh, it would have been interesting to see this relationship. It would have been interesting to see this. And it's true. I could have written a story all about Mabel and Joan, like there's more in all of these stories. And so part of it was just keeping it to Mabel, but the other part was keeping it in what would be true in what we know about Mabel. And I just don't think that Mabel was the mother who was going to come back and take her child back. I think she was going to look at that, particularly in those times, and think, this child is settled and happy with Ness. She's, a more appropriately aged mother. He's only known her. It's going to be, uproot him for, to reveal that his mother was 15, was in jail essentially, or in a home, and was the youngest murderer, known in Australia. She didn't want that for him, but she wanted to have some involvement in his life. And I don't think that Ness I think he figured it out, and I think that he didn't even tell Ness that he knew. I think he was just happy to quietly hold on to that knowledge. So, yeah, that was what felt to be true for me. There
And it's
may
the
have been
time too, right? I mean, in the
yeah,
like, this young girl, she was already ostracized for so many reasons, and
yeah,
you just didn't talk about those things for so many reasons, of course, but also, like you said, she was protecting him as a mother to keep
mm,
all of that negative away. And I don't think she ever thought she could be a good mother. I think that's why
yeah,
she thought she wouldn't be, couldn't take Persephone for more than 2 seconds, because she just says, I'm not a motherly person, when really it's just,
mm,
she had so much damage. I mean, it's just, ugh, her parents.
yeah, yeah. And Peter's dad is Christos. I've
Yeah.
seen some people mentioning it here. I it is in there because I had some questions about it, and I thought, oh shit, did I cut that bit when because in the editing process I thought maybe it got lost, but then no, it's definitely in there that there's a mention about it. Someone has confirmed that with me. But yes, the father is Christos, and there was another question in there that I was about to
Who moved to
answer.
the street first, Peter or Mabel? It was definitely Mabel, because didn't Ness say
Mabel was there
after,
first.
yeah, that
Yeah.
Peter had to come look after her? Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
but she always saw him when Ness was alive. She was part of his life, and she mentioned that she would go and visit him, and saw Ness. So yeah, he's
Here's
known her.
another very important question that I have to know.
Mm,
How did the patio door get unlocked for Kitty to get out, where Mabel was, being treated for polio? Was it the father?
mm. I mean, that one I left un answered. I believe it was the father, but it was difficult to kind of say that explicitly because we didn't go into his perspective. But I believe it was the father. Some people have thought that it was an accident. Maybe the door was accidentally left open and then he came back and locked it. Um, it, I couldn't get into that through Mabel's perspective because she doesn't know.
Oh, she's
Um,
three. But
Yeah.
when it's confirmed for me that it definitely could be, and most probably was at the scene where the girl is getting out of the tree.
Yeah.
As soon as
Yeah.
you know that he's willing to just watch a child fall intentionally,
Yeah.
anything's possible. I mean, literally anything's possible for him. So, and if he sees his
Yeah.
children as a threat to the house, then
Exactly. And everything, and it's not just about the house. I think everything that took away from him was a threat to him, you know. So, and children can be the ultimate threat when it comes to a relationship, even like that some kind of narcissistic men or women, when children come along, they are the greatest threat to you know, their time. They've been the whole thing before these children have come along. So yeah, I don't think he had any issue with anything happening to either of those children, unfortunately.
one of the things that I just was curious about was you had, I think it was Ness that had Mabel start journaling as well, which became a very important part with the trial, right? Even though it's not too much discussed. But what are your thoughts on journaling? Do you journal? And do you encourage others to journal?
Do you know, I'm not a huge journaler, but sorry, that's the plumber.
We can't
Anyway,
hear them.
um, oh, good. I'm not a huge journaler, and I always feel very unwriterly when I say that because it feels like something writers do. The reason that I haven't historically done it is that I have always wanted to write to entertain people. You know, I want people, I write to be read. And so the idea of writing for myself, you know, or my feelings always felt a little bit, like, is that something that you know, what's the point? Now, with that being said, I'm a complete turncoat and I actually journaled this morning. And I will always do it when I come to a point where I'm stuck on something, you know, something emotional in my life, sometimes something in my book, like just to kind of you know, unclog something that's stuck. Or when I'm just doing the right thing, because I know I'm always better off when I am journaling and meditating. But I'm not always as good as it as I should be. But the journaling piece, I'm not sure if you guys are across this case, but one of the big inspirations that I haven't spoken about for this book is the case of the two young girls in New Zealand who were called Pauline Parker and Juliet Hume, and they murdered Pauline Parker's mother in the 1950s. So this being in Australia, this was a very uh, big case here that we all know about, but it was also made into a movie with Kate Winslet about 20 years ago called Heavenly Creatures, this story. And a big piece, actually, fun fact, Juliet Hume went to jail. They both went to jail for the murder, got out, was given a new name, and her new name was Anne Perry, and she went on to be a crime writer for her whole life. No one knew her identity until she was 70, and she died a couple of years ago at 93. So that's a case of the truth being stranger than fiction. But a big part of that case was the fact that both Juliet Hume and Pauline Parker had written extensively in their journals about their imaginary worlds, and then how that imaginary world tied into the murder of this mother. So they had documented exactly what they planned to do, which I don't recommend if you're planning to murder people, just saying, because that was kind of what put them away. But it also has, you know, those records are available now, and it shows the extent of the, I can't even kind of, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not their psychologist, but there was a level of disconnect from reality that these two girls had. And they also, the judge called their crime, I'm going to forget, there's a French term that describes a crime of two. It's something au deux. Um, someone here will know, write it in the comments if you do. But
There it is.
basically, it's a crime that is deemed to be a crime that only would have happened with these two people. So if there was just one of them, they don't think it would have happened. This crime was particularly stuck on the fact that there was two of them, and so really really interesting case. Obviously, in a way, I suppose Mabel and Daphne mimicked it, but obviously it was the father, not the mother. I didn't try and recreate that story,
Mhm.
but I drew on pieces of it. And one of those pieces was the intensity of that young friendship, and in Mabel's case, a desperation for that friendship,
Mhm.
and also the journaling and the imaginary worlds that they created in there.
Well,
Really fascinating story if anyone wants to go and
I haven't
read.
seen the movie, but definitely we'll go back and watch. I love Kate Winslet. You do talk about how it was so important, or it was important for Mabel to take back her story. Everything
Yeah.
had been internalized for all these years, and it was at the end when she finally was saying, "I'm going to say it in my own words." Why did you? I mean, that really became sort of the thread that kept the book moving. Why
Yeah.
was that such a central part?
It had to be. That was the only way that it could work because her story had been written for her, had been taken from her since she was a child. She talks about how she doesn't remember the name Mad Mabel being given to her. It was just something that had always been true, like the fact
Mhm.
that she had blue eyes and a vagina. She'd never thought about it. That was just the truth. And and I think that names and what that puts on you at a young age, we know how that can turn you in a certain way, and expectations that are put on you can help to kind of make who you are. Now, I don't think it made her mad. It didn't. She was able to kind of withstand um, that, but and I've now completely lost my train of thought in the middle of
Well,
a
she
sentence. That's
definitely doubts
perimenopause.
herself, but she definitely doubts herself because of this. Like, did I kill my sister? Am I Mad Mabel? Because it that constant
Yeah.
bombardment of negative. It's amazing
And
she was
gaslighting.
able to come. Yeah, gaslighting, exactly.
Yeah,
Um,
gaslighting from her father, who was obviously the real villain of the book, and I had no issues having him murdered. I really enjoyed that scene.
yes, thank you for that scene.
You're welcome.
All right. I do want to allow everybody to have, if you want to ask a question, be thinking of it. I'm going to do some rapid fire questions here. Are you ready, Sally?
I'm ready. Yes.
Okay. What's your tea of choice?
Tea,
Tea.
like, yeah.
Cup up.
Well, I'm probably it's lemon, grass, and ginger, but I'm currently having chamomile.
And how do you take it? What do you put in it?
Well, pretty much in a tea bag these days. Although I've got this cute little teapot, and
Uh,
it does have one of these tea leaf things, but I don't. It doesn't matter what I do. I always end up with leaves in the thing, so I just stick a tea bag in there.
but it is cute.
Isn't it cute? And
What
look, matching.
it is. It's really, really cute.
It's cold.
What do you pair with it? Is there a certain item you like a scone or I don't know, apple
Do you
pie?
know? Usually, this is going to make you laugh. We've been laughing about how we're perimenopausal. I don't know if there's anyone else here in the group, but usually I team it with my supplements. In the morning, I'll have my cereal, and then I'll have my cup of tea and my magnesium, and my what else do I take? My vitamin D, my vitamin
Yes,
B. I don't
vitamin
know if
D.
any of them work, and it's probably just a complete waste of money. But like, you have to do something. You have to have hope, don't you?
That's right. We need hope. We definitely need hope. All right. You talk about I guess Persephone got on to Mabel about her catch cry. What's your favorite catch cry?
Oh, it's funny because I'm prematurely old. Like, all of my friends have always said that I have been an old granny since I was 10. And so a lot of the expressions that she used were things that I say, but I do say what the dickens a lot, like what the dickens, which is, like something from an Enid Blyton novel. But yeah, probably what the dickens would be my catch cry, I
Well,
would say.
we can be kindred spirits because on my volleyball team they called me Rose from the Golden Girls. So,
Oh,
it is
yes.
it's a thing. Yeah. All right.
Everyone wants to be Rose. My Golden Girls, because I have a group and they said that I was Dorothy. I'm like, oh, no one wants to be Dorothy. Oh,
She's
well.
central. She's central. All right.
Oh,
Do you,
and bless your cotton socks. That's the other catch cry that I
bless
have.
you, cotton socks. See, I haven't used that one. I may have to work that one in. Which do
Yeah.
you find funnier, a snort or a lart?
It's got to be a large, doesn't it?
And
Oh, there's
then,
Anissa. Hi,
yeah.
Anissa.
And then, which character has stuck with you the longest after the last page is turned, whether it's one of yours or another book?
Oh, I mean, certainly from my own books, it's Mabel. I mean, I'm with her all the time. She's with me. I think a lot about Where the Crawdads Sing is one of my favorite books, and I loved the character Jumpin. I actually think about him a lot more than I even think about Kaya. Um, and yeah, I mean, literary figures they pop in and out, don't they? And almost always when I have a thought or a memory or something I'm thinking about, this is something else my friends give me stick about, is I'm always referencing something from a book, from a novel, like I remember in this novel I read, they said this, and it's a little piece of wisdom. So yeah, most this is why we love books, there's always something to reference, some bit of wisdom or something that we've learned. So yeah, it could come from anywhere.
Absolutely. And I will go back to the chat box because where is it? Greg saved me. The quote from Ellen Foster, first line.
Oh,
When I was little, I would think of ways to kill my daddy.
oh, that's the
Yeah.
best. Which book is that?
It's Ellen Foster is the name of the book.
Okay,
And it's short and extremely, extremely good. And then
I'm
I will
gonna read
also
that.
say Emily came to your rescue about Dorothy, and
Oh yes.
she says, she's right. Dorothy is the smartest and the funniest. So just own it. Own it, Sally.
God love you. Bless your cotton socks. But it's just because in this is my divorced mums group that sort of formed afterwards, and there's a really obvious, like my friend Sash is Blanche because she's just mad for the men, and like she's constantly that fun character, and then we've got Anna who's the obvious Rose, and then Andrea who is the mother, the what's her
Yeah,
name, Sophia. So I
Sophia.
thought I got Dorothy by default, but actually, I like to think it's because I'm the smartest and the funniest. Thank you very much. I'll
Yeah.
take that one.
All right, we do have some questions popping up. So Leslie, go ahead with your question. We're going to be fast today because we have
Hey,
lots.
Leslie.
All right, Leslie, go.
Hello. Quick
I
question.
love
Thanks
your
for
background.
oh, thank you. Thanks for having us. Love the accent. Everything is fabulous. You said there were different endings of the book. Was there an ending where Mabel lived in any of your
Yeah,
writing?
yeah, there
Justice
was.
for
And
Mabel.
justice for Mabel. And I probably am not supposed to talk about this, but I actually just had a meeting about I've signed the rights for a TV series. And now again, like these guys, I've signed the option. Who knows if it actually ever gets made? But they were talking about not a limited series, but an ongoing series where Mabel would be alive at the end. And I was like, oh, that would be fun. Like, let's in the book it did feel like that was how she was going to go, and that made sense for me, and I was peaceful with that ending. But if she was resurrected, I'd be on board.
Hey, more Mabel or on board? Great question. Thanks so much,
That is a
Leslie.
great
All
question.
right,
Thanks, Leslie.
Janelyn, do you want to ask your question?
Hi, I believe you were on an American tour recently for this book. And what was the best thing about coming to the States for you?
Oh, I love coming to the States. I had a great tour. I think it's my fourth US tour, and I'm not just saying this, but I get to meet some of the same readers every time. And and some of them are on this chat right now, you, LB, and Anissa, and it is an extraordinary thing to have them come on the journey with you from the first event where you have just a few people in attendance, and then you have a few more, and then maybe there's a line out the front, etc. um, and to know that they're the reason why you can continue to do this is so special. And the the people on the other side of the world, that aren't reading my books because my mum told them, or they're friends with, but the family that just, and then for them to come to me and tell me that they have really spoken to them, that's the best bit. So yeah, I love it. I'd come to America, any chance I could. So I'll be back next year for the next book, which will be great.
Thanks, Jalen. All right. Speaking of one of your fans, Anissa.
Hi, Sally. Hi,
Hello.
Abby.
How
Which
are you?
Sally, which character gave you the most fits when you were writing? Which one was talking to you maybe in a way and changing the way you were writing them, or who was giving you trouble?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, with this book, well, I mean, Mabel was talking to me the whole time, obviously, because it was her story. I think that probably, but I was pretty clear to follow her. The little sidebars that sort of took me to some different places. One was Roxanne's story, which was Persephone's mum. I wanted her story to dovetail a little bit, but not in a way that was, which I think it did in the end. I like the idea of we've got these, single women on the street, and hers is, Roxanne's a young woman, and Persephone is also kind of a single lonely woman on the street, and Joan, and so all of these little stories, you want them to ring true and to not be too much, but also to be kind of all on the same theme. So it took me a few goes to figure out her story.
Mhm.
And also, I suppose, as I worked through Mabel's backstory, the things that happened to her, I wanted them to be bad enough, but not so bad. You know what I mean? And so I did kind of go to some places and then I pulled it back. And there's that question of how much do we need the reader to see? I don't want to traumatize anyone with my books. I'm not writing, a little life, which I love, by the way, but that sort of push pull of what goes in and what doesn't need to go in probably took up a fair bit of my time.
Thanks, Anissa. Great
More than a
question.
character. I know you asked about characters, but yeah, that was a great
All
question.
right.
Thank you.
We have another reader question. Go ahead and ask yours, Arch.
Hi, this is
Hi.
so we didn't talk much about Tess and Matt. I'm not going to talk too much about them either, but it was pretty obvious they were a lesbian couple, right? And
Yeah.
was there an overall message that you were trying to convey in this book about the plight of women and girls? The girls and women get abused. Girls and women get harassed. Girls and women have expectations that don't apply to men. Was there a bigger message there?
Yeah, that's a great question. There wasn't a message in so far as I was trying to say this. I always do include characters and it's funny, someone said to me recently, do you know that you've had a lesbian couple in every book that you've written? And I was like, have I? That's so fascinating. And then I thought, well, actually, no, it's not, because I include characters in my books because they exist in real life and I write about women. So of course that is going to be the case. There'll also be people from different backgrounds and different cultures and all of those things. And one of the things that I find most powerful to read about and to write about is to include characters in a certain that have got certain characteristics. So this is the first time I did this with The Good Sister, which is about an autistic librarian. And I have two autistic kids as my background. And I wanted my kids to read books that had autistic protagonists that were not in there as the funny sidekick, and they weren't in there discovering that they were on the spectrum or their family discovering that. They were in the book because autistic people exist and they have their own stories. That's not what it's not about them being autistic. And so similarly with Mabel and with Cess and Ness, they weren't in it because they were gay. They were in it because they were these important people in Mabel's life. They were also in it because, guess what? Gay people existed in the 50s, and it's so easy to forget that. When I'm not suggesting you've forgotten that, by the way, I know that you haven't. But I think that because it wasn't open and because we didn't talk about it. Sometimes they don't exist in 1950s novels, or they aren't spoken about. So I just try to put people in my books where they are and where they were, and that just becomes part of the kind of fabric of the novel, and it will mean different things to different people. I have had people, lesbian couples who are now elderly reach out to me and say thank you for including them, because everyone knew, whether they knew it or not, there were women living together all over the place where they called us friends, but you know that's what we were doing. And I didn't live in that time, but I just do my best to include what I see. And it, of course, I write about women, I write for women, I'm a woman. There's probably going to be more lesbians in my books. Not that I do it intentionally. I don't think there are any actually in the book that I'm writing right now. There is a male gay couple, but it's not finished yet.
As I say, not yet. Thanks for highlighting that. All right, well, I get
Thank
the
you.
next reader ready to ask their question. Tracy did say, just as a comment, and I totally agree with this, as an audiobook lover, the narrator for this book was all caps, on point, exclamation points, hearts. And I agree.
Yes.
Just amazing, amazing.
And the audiobook has absolutely gone gangbusters. Like, compared to my previous books, it's which have always gone well, but it's selling the best out of all versions of the book, and it's hands down, the narrators are sensational.
So good, so good. Stephanie, you want to ask your
Hi.
question?
Hi.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hello. My question is, I didn't realize Daphne was imaginary till the very end. And then I started questioning, Daphne was pushing her to go to all these things like the bonfire. So she was really doing that without a friend. What made her, she was really kind of didn't like being around the kids. What made her go by herself?
Well, I think that's what she wanted. I mean, I think that she took herself away, and even as an old lady, she took herself away. But everyone wants to be part of the group. I think that, obviously by the creation of Daphne, Mabel was desperate to be part of something. She wanted to be included. She wanted to find her tribe enough that she did create this person. So I don't think she ever um you know, until, of course, she ends up, once she was convicted of this crime and then went to prison, I think she stopped opening up. But I think there was a real part of her, when she found that friendship with Christos, that just filled her up. And was something that she desperately wanted. So I think it was almost like that, that devil or angel on your shoulder going, go, keep trying, don't give up. And that was the part of her that Daphne represented.
Thank
Great
you.
question. Thank you. All right, we have two more. Mel, do you want to ask your question?
Hi,
Sure.
Mel.
Hi. Love the book. I think it is probably going to be my favorite of 2026. And I've
Oh,
made
that's so
every. My question actually dovetails really nicely with the previous one, which is, did Mabel always know that she had made up Daphne, or was there a part of her as a child, do you think, or was there even a version in in one of the initial drafts where like she really actually believed Daphne was real? Because obviously by the older timeline, she's very clear about what she had
Mm.
done.
I don't think that if she was really pressed, she thought she was real. I've talked a lot to people who have had imaginary friends, children, but also adults that have had imaginary friends into adulthood. And there are different versions of it. And I don't think that, because there are versions that can be even dissociative personality and things like that. I don't think that's what Mabel had. But imaginary friends can, in some cases, be completely friendly and something that happens to a happy child, well adjusted. It does not always have sinister, roots. Sometimes it does, and in some cases, there's also children that they put it on the spectrum of, they think that this child is gifted and is actually seeing angels in some cases. So I did some really interesting research into it. Where I landed with Mabel is that she knew. And while I didn't have an imaginary friend when I was a child, my brother did, I had a very vivid imagination, and I would often step into a imaginary world, which I knew wasn't real. This is what I was leaning on. I knew it wasn't real, but I would talk to my friends in my imaginary world, and I would close my eyes and I'd be able to picture it in my head. And so, in a lot of ways, it was real, even though I knew it wasn't real. And so that was kind of that was the way that I was imagining it with and I think she describes it, I've lost the language now, but she described it almost as being something from a book that you go back and yes, it was real. Like, it was real. I remember it. I remember seeing, Kaya at the marsh, or you can visualize it in your head and it's all there, but it wasn't real. It wasn't something you experienced. But does that make it any less real? um yeah, but that it's all my interpretation, and everyone brings their own interpretation to imaginary friends, and their own kind of our brains are all different too. Like, where some people will visualize things and see pictures, and other people will hear things, and the humans are extraordinary, and extraordinary in the way that they save themselves too. And I think that's what Mabel was doing. She was saving herself from a very traumatic childhood with the invention of this person. That was the brain taking care of her. And we do see that happen with kids in difficult childhoods, difficult situations.
Mel, that was an extraordinary question. Thank you for
It
that.
was.
Do you
Thank you,
have
Mel.
time for one more, Sally? I think we
Yeah,
have just
yeah, go for it. I
and
think the
go
plumber's
ahead,
left.
Monica.
Hope the fridge is done. Hi, Monica.
Hi. My question is actually also about Daphne, but it's more about the writing process. I was surprised to hear that it was that you came up with the idea that she was imaginary about one third through writing the book.
Yeah.
So my question is, did you, of course, go back later and put in like a little hints, because there are many places where we meet Daphne, when we see Daphne, and when you really think about it, you're like, of course, she was imaginary, even if you maybe didn't pay attention to it from the beginning. Like the hospital comes to my mind. Well, of course, she showed up. That's when her mom just died. Of course, she needed desperately a friend at that point, and that's when Daphne shows up.
Mm.
Also, I love the part when Ness and Sess actually talk to Daphne. I think they're the only people that
Yeah,
talk to her. And
they are.
I thought about it and I was like, well, of course, they were such an accepting people in Mabel's life that, of course, they were the ones that would support an imaginary friend.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for saying that. And because I wasn't sure about that scene where they do speak directly to her. And then I thought, of course they do. And I think even the cautiousness with which Mabel allows them into that, to meet her, and her kind of heart in her throat as it's happening, is about how she does let them in. She lets them see her, in a way that she really hadn't let her own parents see her, or anyone else. So that was a special moment for her to open that up. Yeah.
Great question,
Did that
Sally.
answer your question? Sorry, I hope it did.
Oh, sorry. She said yeah.
Oh, good.
Well, this has been an absolute wonderful, wonderful night. I am wishing I could ask more questions. I know someone in the box asked earlier what you're reading and what books you'd
Yeah.
recommend to us. So if you can go ahead and give us those before we close off, and everybody's already grabbing their pens to write. So
I've just finished Lisa Jewell's new book. It Could Have Been Her. Fantastic. I'm mad for her. She's just, every book she writes is just fantastic. It's a thriller. It's the kind of over the top premise is it's about a woman who finds a missing dog in her, and she lives in a rural kind of country area, and she goes to the vet, and to check if it's been tagged, or what do they call it, microchipped, and it has. And the dog belongs at this house in London, which is quite a long way away. And the house that it belongs to, she had visited 20 years earlier and had a little bit of a strange experience there. So she becomes caught up in how the dog got there and what was actually going on in this house. And it's just straight in, bang, you're intrigued. It's dark, it's pacey, it's marvelous.
I'm
And then
having
in a
Reading Rainbow flashbacks right now. Like I feel like you could be on Reading Rainbow and entice all of us to read all these books. Keep going, keep
oh,
going.
good. I've got two more. So
Mhm.
that I've read recently. One, and it's completely different. The things we didn't say by Elizabeth Strout. And this is a fairly new one. I read it a couple of months ago, and I adore Elizabeth Strout. Olive Kitteridge is one of my all-time favorites. Yeah, she's just the most magnificent character. And this one is about a high school teacher called Artie, who's this really inspirational teacher, one of those ones that just connects with the students, and just this beautiful man. And it's a bit of a quiet book in that it's the opposite of that Lisa Jewell, it's but I still couldn't put it down. He's pondering a lot of things in his life. A couple of secrets come up to do with the relationship with his son, and also to do with his wife. And it's quirky and it's funny, but it's also quite existential, and kind of he's pondering some of the big things in the world today. And it's all kind of, you're told through the eyes of this really interesting guy. But I think the thing that I really loved about it, which also I'm not going to tell you what it is, but several times through the book, the character actually jumps ahead and you find out something that happened 5 years later, or 10 years later, or after they died. And then you go back to where you were in the plot. And I've never seen that happen before. Like, it's just a little, and it was so effective. And, as a writer, I love people playing with time and space like that. But as a reader, it was really well done. So that's that one. Can I do one more?
Sure, go for it.
The other one is, you probably all already read it, but The Calamity Club by Catherine Stockett. I ate it up. I listened to the audiobook. Yep, PB's nodding. And the audiobook is amazing because I love the Southern accents. I was thinking in a Southern accent while I was listening to it. And it also is a long book, as we were discussing earlier. And so I just, every time I got in the car, or was lying in bed or doing housework, I was listening to it. And it just, also, it's my favorite things. It's a story about three women. We're back in, it's not Jackson, we're back in somewhere. I'm going to say, I'm so bad on all of these things, but we go into the mind of this young orphan girl. Then we go, I'm going to even forget all their names. Birdie, who is an older, sorry, she's young. She's probably 24 or something. She's older than the orphan, but not old. And who's the other person? Maybe it's just the two of them. This is a terrible, see, I've been fired from my job now, haven't I? Just read that one. That one's really, really good. Or listen to the audiobook. It's an inspirational story about women and all kind of pulling together
All
to
right.
help each other. I loved
I'm
it.
going to save you right now
Thank
because
you.
there's a very important question. Kimberly brought up, and I should have picked up on this myself, but you mentioned you're writing your next novel. Is there anything you can tell us about it, or maybe when it might be released?
Yeah, I don't know when it's don't have an exact release date yet, but it is it's called The Divorce Hotel, which won't surprise you, since I was talking about my divorce a little while ago. And I won't make you guess who's going to get murdered. No, no. Look, it's about my favorite thing. It's about women. It's about, in this case, it's to do with three women who all end up staying at a hotel after their divorce, and it's based on a little hotel in my neighborhood that was recently demolished, but it was a opposite the beach. This was fabulous in the 70s, and it became more and more decrepit, this hotel, and eventually it became the place that people would go and stay when they left their marriages, mostly men, but also some women. And our little neighborhood became riveted by it, like including my mum. She'd drive past and go, "I saw Mary Ann's son at the Divorce Hotel." And so it was like the place for the gossip. And sometimes there was a police car there because someone had breached an AVO, or, and so it's now been knocked down. But then separately from that, obviously, I went through my own divorce, which was, incredibly difficult and transformative for me. And so as I pondered that kind of, what divorce, obviously a lot of people end up divorced, and the thoughts that we go through, and the hopefully transformation that we go through is something that a lot of people experience. And while not everyone checks into a hotel after they get divorced, we do all kind of go into this transition period where we're no longer married, but we haven't really started our new life. We're scared. We don't know what's ahead. And so this is all of those emotions packed into this funny little 70s motel, with a little bit of danger, a little bit of murder, and a little bit of a 70s story of another divorcee who'd stayed in that hotel when it was hot and the latest place to be.
Well, Misty has informed us because she is on it. She said Divorce Hotel right now shows a release date of September 6th, 2027. And she's already
Okay.
pre-ordered it. So she is
Oh,
ready.
God, love you.
And so y'all keep your eyes out. If you can follow Sally, she's really wonderful on Instagram, and she has a page on Facebook, but all the places, so we can find out what the new stuff is to come.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to quickly do a quick precursor for what's coming so y'all can all be ready. August 3rd, I'm going to be in conversation with the Alex E. Harrow for her newest, The Everlasting. It's an instant New York Times bestseller, USA Today bestseller, indie bestseller, Library Reads Hall of Fame, and this is a moving and genre-defying quest about a lady knight whose legend built a nation, and the cowardly historian sent back through time to make sure she plays her part, even if it breaks her heart. And so, but then another one in August, really quick, so you can have this read. August 24th, this is another big hitter. Annabelle Moynihan will be on the LB Lover of Books author chat for Dolly all the time. Y'all, this Goodreads rating, I think, just keeps going up and up, over 100,000. So if you haven't picked up and read it, you're going to fall in love. But Sally, I am ready to give you your send off. Thank you,
Okay.
Paul, so much for getting it out there that weird people are the best. Thank you for embracing all of us weird readers. We love your novel filled with boom mics and bad intentions, and proving that there can be no oxygen left for more laughter, leaving us with no room for fear or shame or horror. At some point along the way, we will all have been pummeled and delighted by life. And yes, there will be pain to love and being loved. And isn't it all worth it? There comes a day when we will all stop receiving packages. And hopefully, we all found that true gift of friendship along the way. But Sally, make no mistake, we will forever be your fans as long as the sun and moon endure. We choose you.
Oh, you guys, you're gonna make me cry. Thank you. This has been so lovely, and thank you all for reading and your great questions. And someone just wrote, I loved the part about Aldi because I get a kick out of getting a rice cooker for $16 too, which just that warmed the cockles of my heart. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Sally. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I will see y'all August 3rd, August 24th, and more are scheduled. So thank you for joining, and good night. And Sally, have a great morning.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye.